The October sun bore down mercilessly as I stood before my mother's grave, the polished granite reflecting a sky far too bright for such a somber day. My hand trembled around the single white rose I had brought, its petals trembling with me. I had chosen to wear one of my own creations, a sleek black dress cut from fabric sourced directly from an Italian mill. To anyone else, it was a symbol of grief. To me, it was the quiet culmination of everything I had built. Yet to my family, it was nothing more than another chance to belittle me. "That dress looks so economical?" Brianna drawled, her voice pitched just loud enough for the cluster of mourners to hear. My sister's smirk gleamed like the diamond on her finger. "I suppose it's the best you could do with that failing little shop of yours." I clenched my jaw, keeping my eyes fixed on the stone etched with my mother's name. A rush of memory struck Mother, guiding my 8-year-old hands along fabric, whispering that one day the world would see my light. Now, as dirt rested heavy over her coffin, her voice was the only anchor I had. Ethan slid up beside me, his cologne arriving before his words. "If you need a loan to keep the boutique afloat, just ask," he murmured with feigned generosity. "Managing finances isn't for everyone." Before I could respond, my father's voice cut the air, commanding attention even in grief. "Martha's little hobby was always sentimental. Catherine insists on clinging to it, but we all know it's not sustainable. Always the family disappointment." The word stabbed deeper than he knew. But I refused to break. Instead, my fingers brushed the hem of my dress fabric, worth more than Brianna's monthly rent. My label, my design, already graced red carpets and royal palaces, though not one of them suspected. For 10 years, I had hidden behind the mask of the struggling daughter, while under the pseudonym K. Morgan, I had quietly built an empire. Only Mother knew the truth, and now she was gone. When Father announced he had already contacted a realtor to sell the boutique property, I finally spoke. "Mother left the boutique to me," I said firmly. Laughter echoed across the cemetery. Brianna patted my shoulder with mock sympathy. "Always so sentimental about that little store." Tomorrow Father ordered 2 o'clock at his house. The matter would be decided. His tone left no room for choice. Eleanor appeared at that moment, composed and precise. "Miss Morgan," she said, addressing me as always with professional respect. "Your conference call begins in 30 minutes. Brianna sneered, still keeping Mother's little shop assistant around. How sweet. They had no idea. Eleanor was my executive vice president, overseeing 12 countries. Her salary alone would make Brianna choke on her imported champagne. As my family drifted off to dinner plans, I whispered to Eleanor, "Tomorrow they'll learn what I've built." That evening, the San Diego harbor gleamed beneath my penthouse window. Grief mingled with calculation as Eleanor laid out files across my glass desk. Each folder told the same story: my family was drowning in debt scandal and ruin. Ethan, under SEC investigation, leveraged far beyond his means. Brianna living in a rented palace on credit cards and loans she could never repay. Father, his empire already crumbled, clinging to properties soon to be repossessed. "They think they're circling prey," I said, flipping through intercepted emails that detailed their plan to pressure me after the funeral. "But they're already bleeding." Eleanor placed a leather-bound portfolio in my hands, letters from Mother, instructions, protections I had forgotten. Her final message echoed in my head. "They never deserved to know, Katie. Never." But I was no longer the daughter needing protection. I was the defender of her legacy. The next morning, I walked into the boutique early. Samuel, our family's lawyer, handed me an envelope. My mother had left me everything, not just the boutique, but full control of the Morgan estate. "They don't know, do they?" I asked. Samuel shook his head. "They believe your father will control everything." By the time Eleanor arrived with acquisition papers confirming my company's $2 billion purchase of Volante, my decision was clear. The meeting would not happen in Father's house. It would happen here, on my ground. And when my family arrived, they would step not into a failing little boutique, but into the heart of the empire they had dismissed all my life. As Eleanor arranged the final details, I stood at the glass doors leading from the shop floor to 35,000 square feet of headquarters they had never seen. Designers prepared workstations, mannequins wore next season's collection, and the KM logo glimmered across the wall. "They have no idea," Eleanor murmured at my side. "Perfect," I whispered, straightening my shoulders. "It's time they meet Kay Morgan." My family arrived earlier than expected, sweeping into the boutique as though they already owned it. Brianna immediately began critiquing the displays, her manicured fingers grazing the fabric with disdain. Ethan checked his watch, his irritation poorly disguised. Father stood tall in the center of the room, surveying the space like a general considering what he would raze and rebuild. They believed they were here to corner me into surrender. They had no idea the trap was theirs. I watched from behind the glass door, Eleanor at my side, before stepping forward. "Thank you for coming," I said evenly. "If you'll follow me, we can discuss Mother's estate in my office." Confusion flickered in their eyes, but arrogance carried them forward. When I pushed open the door marked "Employees Only," they followed straight into the soaring glass and steel headquarters of KM Atelier. The effect was instant. Brianna's gasp cut the air. Ethan faltered, his confident stride breaking. Father froze, his expression hardening as if sheer will could control what he was seeing. Designers paused mid-task, offering me updates in passing. "Miss Morgan, Paris team needs your approval on fabric selections." "Go with cerulean," I replied without hesitation. My family trailed behind me in silence, absorbing the truth. In the conference room, I gestured for them to sit. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the San Diego skyline as documents lay prepared at each seat. Behind me, the KM logo glowed. "This," I said, taking my place at the head of the table, "is KM Atelier, one of 12 global headquarters. Annual revenue $2.4 billion, 7,000 employees, 52 flagship stores worldwide, and I am Kay Morgan." Brianna's hand flew to her mouth. Ethan's eyes darted across the document, scanning revenue sheets, market analyses, merger reports. Father slammed his palm on the table. "Absurd. You've been running a failing boutique." "No," I corrected calmly. "That was the mask I let you see. This is what I built." I pressed a button on the remote, projecting financial reports, magazine covers, and celebrity endorsements onto the wall. "And I also know about your financial situations." Ethan stiffened as his SEC documents appeared. Brianna paled at her mounting debts laid bare. Father's foreclosure notices glared from the screen. "You've been lying to us for years." Brianna snapped, her voice trembling. "I've been protecting myself," I said, my voice steady. "From this. From your condescension, your greed, your attempts to take credit for what was never yours." Silence stretched heavy and suffocating. For the first time, they had no words. Eleanor entered, then handing me fresh papers. "The Volante acquisition papers you requested, Ms. Morgan." I slid them across the table. "News you missed yesterday. KM Atelier acquired Volante for $2 billion. I am the majority stakeholder." Father straightened, clinging to the last scraps of authority. "As your father, I should have been consulted. I could have guided you." "No," I cut him off, my tone firm but controlled. "You lost that right the moment you dismissed everything I did as a hobby. The moment you called me the family disappointment at Mother's funeral." Samuel entered with another envelope. "Your mother's estate documents, Ms. Morgan." I turned to them, my voice quieter but sharper. "Mother left me everything. Not just the boutique, the entire Morgan estate. I am sole executor." Father's face flushed, his hands trembling. "This is preposterous. I am the head of this family." "Not anymore," I said simply. "I will help you, but only on my terms." Ethan looked from the documents to me, his arrogance draining into calculation. Brianna's wide eyes brimmed with something between fear and desperation. Father's silence weighed heavier than his words ever had. For the first time, I wasn't the one cornered. They were. 3 days passed after the confrontation in my headquarters, and the echo of my family's stunned silence still lingered in my mind. The initial rush of satisfaction had dulled, replaced with something colder and far more strategic. This was no longer about proving myself. It was about protection of my company, my reputation, and mother's legacy. I gathered my advisors around the long glass conference table, sunlight spilling across rows of meticulously arranged folders. Eleanor sat to my right, her presence steady, her silver hair catching the light as she reviewed the agenda. My legal team spread out at the far end, draft contracts stacked neatly before them. This isn't about feelings anymore, I told them. It's about boundaries. Every dollar comes with accountability. The first folder detailed father's terms tenancy in a modest company-owned property, far from his sprawling coastal estate contingent upon his public acknowledgement that KM Atelier was mine alone. The second, Ethan's top-tier legal counsel for his SEC case, but only if he accepted full responsibility and complete cooperation. The third, Brianna's employment as a sales trainee at our accessories subsidiary, earning $18 an hour, no special treatment, no shortcuts. Eleanor studied my face. They'll see this as weakness. Any help will look like a crack they can exploit. That's why the contracts are ironclad, I replied, snapping the folders shut. Accountability or nothing. As the team debated tax implications and PR fallout, I remained still listening, absorbing. For years, I had endured my family's dismissals in silence. Now, with lawyers, strategists, and executives aligned at my side, I realized just how much power I had reclaimed. Later, Eleanor brought me a fresh report on my family's movements. Your father consulted 3 attorneys about contesting the will, she said. Ethan has been speaking to journalists pushing a story about a Morgan fashion dynasty. And Brianna is dropping hints online about some big family business announcement. I turned to the window, watching San Diego's harbor gleam under the afternoon sun. They're rewriting history before it's even cold. Fashion Week Insider just published a blog, Eleanor added grimly, handing me her tablet. An anonymous source claims Richard Morgan was the creative force behind KM Atelier, with you as the public face. The headline stabbed like ice. My father was trying to take credit for everything. Anger flared hot in my chest, but I forced my voice calm. I expected them to fight for money. I didn't expect them to attack my name. Eleanor's eyes met mine. They're more strategic than we thought. Then, so am I said, resolve tightening inside me. Time for phase 2. Within days, contracts were finalized, strategies, polished contingencies drawn in meticulous detail. Every attack they might launch, press conferences, legal challenges, leaks, had a countermeasure ready. But the next blow came sooner than expected. Eleanor entered my office one morning, her voice urgent. Catherine, your father has scheduled a press conference for tomorrow morning. He plans to introduce the family behind K. Morgan. For a heartbeat, my world tilted. Years of secrecy, of careful construction, of independence, it could all unravel in minutes. He doesn't need proof, I said, forcing myself to breathe. Just enough confusion to damage me. Then what do we do? Eleanor asked. We move tonight, I decided, already reaching for my phone. 7 o'clock. Every document, every plan activated now. Outside, storm clouds rolled over the harbor, dark and heavy. Inside, I felt something shift. For years, I had hidden in their shadow. Tonight, that ended. By 7 o'clock that evening, the boardroom of KM Atelier had been transformed into a battleground. Contracts were stacked neatly at each seat, screens prepared with evidence and security discreetly positioned outside. I stood at the head of the table, every detail arranged, every contingency accounted for. This was not a family meeting. This was a negotiation for control of everything I had built. The door opened, and my father strode in with Ethan and Brianna close behind. But it wasn't only them. My stomach clenched when I saw the tall figure entering at father's side, Thomas Vellante, the founder of the luxury label I had just acquired. He should have been in Milan preparing for Fashion Week, not standing here with the family that had mocked me all my life. Catherine, father said smoothly, his voice carrying false confidence. I believe you know, Mr. Vellante. We have much to discuss. Eleanor shifted closer, her posture protective, as Volante's sharp eyes fixed on me. Or should I say, K. Morgan. His accent wrapped around the name like silk hiding a blade. Brianna slid a portfolio across the table, her smirk gleaming. The acquisition numbers. Thomas has concerns. Ethan leaned forward, his cologne overwhelming his voice oily. The board might want to know how you've maintained two separate identities while running a public company. I understood instantly. They had found the one pressure point I hadn't anticipated: my secrecy. Thomas opened the portfolio, revealing projections from the Milan factory. These numbers appear manipulated, he said carefully. Father's chest swelled with triumph. We're giving you one chance, Catherine. Bring us into leadership. Board positions for Ethan and me, VP of PR for Brianna. It's the only way to protect your company. Brianna's tone was syrupy, mocking her old habit of false concern. We're just trying to help you, Catherine. Ethan added the final twist. The SEC might be very interested in how you've hidden your identity for years. For a split second, doubt whispered. They had pushed past inheritance, past family drama, straight to the empire itself. But before fear could take root, my phone vibrated. Eleanor's discreet text glowed on the screen: contingency protocol. I typed one word back: activate. Minutes later, Eleanor returned with Samuel Whitaker and two members of my legal team. They carried tablets and thick document folders. Samuel greeted Volante with calm professionalism. A pleasure to see you again. Volante frowned. Again. Samuel placed a notarized acknowledgement in front of him. Your signed confirmation of Catherine Morgan's identity as K. Morgan, dated before acquisition negotiations. Color drained from Volante's face as he recognized his own signature. Eleanor connected her tablet to the screen. Shall I play the recording of yesterday evening? The one where Richard Morgan offered Mr. Volante 10% of his board compensation in exchange for supporting this charade. Father's face blanched, his authority cracking. You've been recording us. We record all acquisition calls, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Standard practice. The legal team laid thick folders before each family member. Every option you might consider: press conferences, lawsuits, leaks, has been anticipated, and every response prepared. I met their eyes one by one. You have 1 hour to decide. Accept my terms or walk away with nothing. The silence was suffocating. My family's triumph had collapsed into panic. Volante looked from Samuel's documents to Eleanor's screen, then back to me. His earlier confidence faltered. The acquisition will proceed. Yes, I assured him, my voice firm, provided there are no further complications. As I left the room, Eleanor's voice rang clear behind me. Ms. Morgan's terms are final. For the first time in years, the power was mine. When I returned to the boardroom an hour later, the atmosphere had shifted entirely. My family looked smaller somehow, their postures wilted beneath the weight of the contracts laid before them. Behind me, board members and executives gathered, silently witnesses to a reckoning that had been years in the making. Father stood rigid at the window, his silhouette cut against the glow of the San Diego skyline. Ethan paced near the door, his usual arrogance cracked into nervous agitation. Brianna perched on the edge of a leather chair, clutching her phone, as if it could still deliver her a way out. Have you reached a decision? I asked, placing my hands firmly on the polished table. This is ridiculous, Father thundered, spinning to face me. These terms are insulting. I built this family. I gave you everything. My laugh came sharp, bitter. Everything you gave me: doubt, criticism, and dismissal. Mother gave me belief. His face hardened, his eyes narrowing. Your mother valued loyalty above all. She would want you to forgive family. The invocation of her name was his last weapon, and for a fleeting moment it pierced me. Guilt rose like it always had when he demanded obedience. But then I remembered the letters. I slid a stack bound in faded ribbon across the table. She knew exactly who you were, I said softly. That's why she protected me from you. Brianna lunged for them, but Eleanor placed her own folder down firmly. I kept records too, she said, her voice cool and unshakable. Every attempt to undermine Catherine's business, Every phone call about breaking her lease. Every insult. Father's complexion reddened. This is a business meeting, not therapy. On the contrary, Thomas Volante's voice cut in. He had been silent until now, but his gaze swept the room with calm precision. Yesterday, Richard offered me a kickback if I threatened to withdraw from our acquisition. He wanted to sabotage his daughter's company. The board members stirred uneasily. Father sputtered. Absurd. I was protecting family interests. By destroying mine, I countered. I turned to Ethan. The SEC already has your name tied to insider trading. Stop pretending this is about me. I slid his contract across the table. Take the legal counsel I offer or face prison without it. To Brianna, I placed another folder before her. You want relevance, earn it. $18 an hour standard training, standard evaluations. And finally, to Father. The foreclosure notices are clear. You can accept the rental property I offer or find housing yourself. This is not humiliation. It's reality. The board chairman cleared his throat, his voice carrying the weight of the room. We have witnessed Ms. Morgan's leadership, integrity, and vision firsthand. She built this company without family assistance. We stand with her. Ethan broke first. His signature scratched across the page, jaw tight. Brianna's eyes brimmed with tears, but her trembling hand followed. Father resisted, pride etched deep into his shaking frame, but at last the pen dragged his name across the paper. 3 signatures. 3 acknowledgments that the empire was mine and always had been. As Samuel collected the contracts, Father's voice came low, hollow. Is that all? That's all, I replied. The terms are clear. The rest is up to you. They filed out, diminished not just by circumstance but by truth. For the first time in my life, they no longer held power over me. Eleanor stepped closer, her hand brushing mine. Your mother would be proud of your strength. I exhaled slowly, the weight of a decade lifting. This isn't revenge, I whispered. It's boundaries. And for the first time, they'll have to live within them. 6 weeks later, the headline blazed across the New York Times: Fashion's best-kept secret revealed. Catherine Morgan is K. Morgan. The article detailed the journey I had hidden for a decade, from a so-called failing boutique to the helm of a multi-billion-dollar global empire. Public response was overwhelming. Web traffic up 45%, Instagram followers doubled, Eleanor reported as she laid a sales report on my desk. The Volante integration is exceeding projections. For the first time, I was seen not as a disappointment, not as a daughter grasping at a hobby, but as myself. And my family change had been slower, but undeniable. Father moved into the modest condo I arranged and, to my surprise, began volunteering at a retirement community, teaching sewing to seniors. Ethan, forced by circumstance into humility, redirected his legal mind toward helping young designers negotiate contracts. Brianna, once all glitter and empty posturing, had found a surprising gift for sales, earning her promotion not through my grace, but her own work. At the International Design Awards 6 months later, I stood on stage in a gown redesigned from one of Mother's vintage dresses. Spotlights no longer felt blinding. They felt earned. It is my honor to present this year's Breakthrough Designer Award, I said to a crowd that rose in applause, not because of my family name, but because of my work. In the audience, my family sat transformed. Father leaner, quieter, no longer a patriarch, but a man who had found purpose outside control. Ethan scribbling notes for a mentoring session. Brianna in one of our affordable lines dresses, laughing genuinely with buyers. They were no longer the shadows that had haunted me. They were people learning, perhaps for the first time, who they were without dominance. That evening, gathered in my penthouse, the conversation turned not to money or power, but to possibility. We've already rescued 3 designers from bankruptcy through the Morgan Recovery Grant, Eleanor noted. Your mother's legacy lives on. Father lifted his glass, his voice subdued. Martha's first sewing machine, the singer with gold detailing it, belongs in the company museum. People should know where it began. Brianna leaned forward, her eyes softer than I ever remembered. I've been thinking about a scholarship in Mother's name for design students who can't afford tuition. The woman who once mocked me for sentiment now spoke with conviction about lifting others. For the first time, I didn't hear derision. I heard hope. As I stood by the window, the San Diego skyline glittering beneath the night sky, I realized something. Success was never about wealth or control. It was about integrity, the boundaries we defend, the truth we refuse to hide, and the people we choose to help along the way. I touched the locket at my neck, inside it a single thread from the first fabric Mother and I ever stitched together. The greatest legacy, I said aloud, is not what we build for ourselves, but what we make possible for others. Eleanor raised her glass and my family followed. For the first time, we weren't divided by pride or greed. We were united by something Mother had always known: love expressed through creation, belief, and courage. And for the first time, I understood fully I had not only defended her legacy, I had become it. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. And let me know in the comments, what boundaries have you set to protect your own dreams?